Hi there, welcome to the Teeny Tinkers channel. I make ball jointed doll and craft related content. Today is a craft related content. As many of you know, I really like sewing for my dolls and I've been really trying to make a lot more of my own clothing lately, especially because I get these ideas in my head and I just have to make them. I just have to make this outfit. So typically when I make my own doll clothes, I just either wing it or make up the pattern. I've gotten pretty okay or good at maybe looking at an article of clothing and kind of deconstructing it in my head to make the outfit. This is probably only true of sort of easy to intermediate type items. Anything like Victorian or like really frilly or anything is just beyond me. I've also had trouble with a few items like pants with pockets and getting the pockets to sit right, or things like jackets or shirts with collars and getting them to look right, because I'm not a seamstress. I'm just trying to make this up in my head. But we're gonna change that today. So I skedaddled over to Amazon and I found a pattern book that I wanted to try. This is the book. So the name of the book is Tiny Wardrobe, which adorable. And look how cute this is. A lot of the styles in the book are definitely not modern, but I think if they were done in different fabrics, they could look really cool. So my goal is to make everything in this book, probably not in this video. There's I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 patterns in this book. Some of them are clothes, some of them are accessories. So I think I want to try and focus on clothes today, but I definitely want to come back around to the accessories. But before we get started, why don't we take a quick look at what we're going to be making. This book is sort of split into 3 sections. There's the first third, which is the inspiration photos of dolls. The pattern instructions follow, and then, of course, the paper patterns themselves. The photos, though, they are so cute and so inspirational. While the color palette isn't exactly for me, the styles are super cute, and I think they'll adapt well to small modifications and changes in fabric and colors. All the patterns come in 3 sizes: small, which fits midi blythe size dolls, medium, which fits blythe, and large, which fits Unoa or small MSD. This is what I'm going to be using today. This book is really well laid out and has lots of detailed photos of the finished outfits, as well as step-by-step instructions with photos. I found it super easy to follow, especially keeping in mind that I'm brand new to following clothing patterns. Alright, well, we're feeling inspired, so let's start. Starting with the lace strap dress. My only dislike is I wish I could cut out all the patterns, but the paper is double-sided and part of the other patterns would be destroyed if I did. This was one of the patterns I was able to cut out, so I did. I had to look up which lines to cut and figured the outside line was the cut line and the inside line was showing the seam allowance. This is probably really obvious to all you seamstresses out there, but this was new information for me. I did have lace on hand, but I also had this really cute daisy print mesh fabric. It meant skipping the first step where you assemble the lace, but I wanted to try and make this my own anyways. I used this bright yellow cotton for underneath, though I think this is a mesh dress alone for over other clothes would also be really cute. After I measure out the fabric for the skirt, I cut out the pieces and I'm ready to sew. This pattern ended up being one of the simplest in the clothing pieces in this book. One thing the book says is to use phrase stop at the edges before sewing. I'm not sure if this is common, but after this first piece, I switched to using the phrase stop at the end. I was worried the phrase stop would gunk up my machine, and also the bottle says it takes 24 hours to fully dry, so yeah. But that didn't phrase stop me from sewing this one anyways. And I began assembling the pieces following the instructions. The photos were super helpful in understanding the orientation of the pieces and seeing how it all fits together. The pattern calls for lace straps, but instead I folded a strip of the daisy mesh up so all edges were on the inside. Then I just sewed a straight line down the middle. This worked really well as a replacement for the lace, and I just sealed the ends up with fabric glue and phrase stop. A helpful viewer pointed out that my machine has a notch to cut the threads on it, but I literally forget about it every time. By now, I've worked the scissors into my workflow, and it's honestly going to be a really hard habit to break. With that, the bodice is done, and it's honestly so cute. I think I could make this piece longer for a cute crop tank, or even make the skirt super short for a really fun peplum top. One pattern is so many possibilities. I sew up the skirt, hemming the mesh and the cotton together, and decide to give it a little more pizzazz. I add an extra layer of mesh for a cute layered look. I know I'm supposed to follow the pattern, but inspiration just struck me. A quick gather by hand, and I attach them to the bodice. Then all I have to do is hem the back, apply phrase stop, and set it to the side so I can add snaps and details later on. But gosh, I think it looks really great. This pattern is a win in my books. How they decide which pattern to do next. I really wanted to do all the clothing items in this video. However, I don't have a loop to do embroidery, so the smock dress was skipped this time. It does look really nice, and I'll definitely try it. So let's move on to the next dress. This is a bib dress with a dropped waist. Again, very old-timey looking in the photo, but fun fabric to the rescue. This is a cotton print I found on AliExpress that reminded me strongly of the 90s. I think this will be really adorable on Clover or Poppy and really show how different fabric can make a clothing item look super unique. I cut the bib and cuffs out of a complementary pink shade and cut the main parts from the fun fabric. This was the trickiest pattern in the book, and honestly, I had a rough go this time. I'm super confident that after making it once, I'd be able to make it again much better. I cut the bib out without reading that I should make the pleats in the larger piece of fabric first. This is basically the main issue I ran into. It meant that the bib was smaller than the piece it was supposed to fit into for the front of the dress. I fixed this by taking in the whole top of the dress to fit around it. I also added a mint-colored ribbon to the edge as well. All in all, this worked out since Clover has a really tiny upper body, so it did fit perfectly. This would not have worked on a standard or chesty MSD though. This dress is reminding me of 90s kids clothes so much. My mom put me in the wildest stuff, and my Aunt Lou sewed a ton of my dresses when I was a kid. If any young people are watching this, don't judge me for my childhood fashion. There weren't a lot of options. Okay, well, some of the looks were iconic, but this dress is kind of the cooler, more fun version of the stuff I wore as a kid. If I made this pattern again, I'd also want to try some longer or shorter sleeve lengths. I think this dress in particular would have been adorable with extra long sleeves. On to the skirt. This is a super easy pattern. I've made many skirts. Usually I end up making short skirts, and I was excited to try a longer one. I thought I'd go for an airy and summery feel using a soft pink gingham. I think gingham's one of my favorite fabric patterns. It's basically just 4 pieces. There was so much more fabric than I typically use in a skirt, and I think the end result is so good. I am 150% going to make this over and over. This skirt ends up fitting my slim mini teeny tinker's body as about midi length or just above the ankle, though on a mini feet or similar height doll, it would definitely be a maxi. Okay, I've been excited about this waistcoat. While the one in the photo is absolutely adorable, it's definitely not my style. I did have these amazing checkered cotton fabrics I've been dying to use. I love a good fun print, and I was really excited to make a super unique vest for my dolls. This pattern was harder than the skirt with more steps, but still way easier than that bib dress. I think you could even add more fun details and top stitching to this, or sleeves, and make it a really nice jacket. One thing I learned was clothing goes together so much nicer when you attach the shoulders first. I've always attached them later on, and the book says to connect them right at the beginning. This made getting sleeves and collars on much smoother and nicer. Not that this vest has sleeves or a collar, of course. I think this vest took me about 25 minutes to make. If you need something you can whip up really quickly, the vest and skirt would be a really cute combo, I think. Alright, today is the day. I am going to learn how to make pants with pockets. I've tried it before, and the pockets always end up super shallow or scrunched up. I've tried a couple pairs in this blue corduroy already, so I figured third time is the charm. Plus, who doesn't love corduroy pants? This pattern was also not too hard, and while the pocket shapes and instructions looked a bit weird to me, I trusted the process and it paid off. It went together really well. I use hemostats to turn the legs right side out at the end. It's funny how I bought these for stringing dolls, but end up using them for my sewing all the time. I fabric glue the pockets on as instructed, but I think next time I would just hand sew them on or sew them on before assembling the pants. All in all, this is about 6 hours of sewing. I definitely need to stretch and move for the rest of the day. Plus, all the fray stock needs time to dry. The pieces are looking really good at this point. There's still a couple clothing items in the book to make, but first, it's time for Doll of the Week. This week's doll comes from Soul Dolly Rant 928 over on Instagram, who's posted so many photos of her berry Echo. There were only a couple of these available, so it's extra special to see them in the wild. I especially love this photo of her Echo with Miss Nekutaku's Tiny. Dolls with dolls really warm my heart. Thank you so much for sharing. If you want to be considered for Doll of the Week, don't forget to post your photos of my sculpts using hashtag TeenyTinkers or hashtag TeenyTinkersDolls. Alright, back to the video where I'm tidying up the clothes from the day before. I decided to tackle these pants. I'm not gonna lie, these were the thing I was least looking forward to. I wasn't sure how to make them my own, and I really didn't love the way they looked in the photos or see how they would fit my style. Enter pastel knit. I realized these things didn't need to be bloomer pants, but they could be joggers. Definitely more on the drop crotch fit with a tapered leg, but I thought this would suit me best. I did end up putting in a classic waistband instead of the drawstring waistband that they recommended. The stretchy soft knit wouldn't have worked as well, and I think it would have bunched up and added a lot of volume around the waist. I'm really glad I went with this style. Okay, button-up shirt. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, button-ups have always been a bit difficult for me. The pattern photo showcased lace ruffles and a contrasting color collar and cuffs. I decided against that and went for a more classic floral button-up. I got this fabric at the Fabricland ends bin for about $1. There's so much of it. I might use some of it for some dresses or skirts in this book too. I love getting fabric from the ends bins. With doll clothes, I rarely need a lot of yardage, so fabric ends and fat quarters are absolutely my favorites. Finally, the coat. Okay, folks, this came out huge. I followed the pattern, but it's definitely meant to be oversized. I have regrets about choosing this sage green. It's a little more neutral than all the other pieces I made, and it literally goes with nothing else I've made in this video. If I made it again, I would absolutely make it in a bright color and then give it a really fun, funky lining on the inside. Also, why do I keep saying funky? Who says funky? I love the shoulder lining in the gathering though, and I think it would be really adorable if it was a bit smaller and shorter. I'm gonna try this one again, but let me know what you think of it this way. With that, it's just time to add the embellishments on. I didn't add too many this time. I didn't feel like adding a lot of patches or floral bits, but I did add some small ribbons, and of course I added snap closures to the backs. Sometimes I use Velcro, but I thought the snaps would look nicer in this case, especially where it's intended to be buttons. But now that it's all assembled, let's see what it looks like on some dolls. I have to admit, I am so in love with all of these clothing pieces. I think that the 90s bib dress is probably my favorite, with a close runner-up being the vest. But really, I love the vest because I made some matching pants, and I just love the way this whole look looks. The daisy dress turned out super duper cute too. Let me know in the comments which piece you thought was the cutest, and if you have suggestions for any other doll sewing patterns that I could try. I still need to make all of the accessories in this book, but that'll be for another time. If you're already subscribed to my channel, thanks so much for subscribing, and if you're new here, I hope you like the content and consider subscribing. As always, I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye!